Legends of Tomorrow series premiere, pilot part 1. Now, I thought it was interesting that they named it part 1 because of just the way that they kind of did the show, because we didn't get a 2-hour premiere, so I thought it was interesting that they called it pilot part 1. But I think the reason they did that is because in the next episode, I believe we're supposed to have Barry come into the show, and we're also going to have Oliver come back, and they're actually going to help fight, because I know they're supposed to be, I believe it's only the first 2 episodes we're supposed to get like the big 3-series crossover cameo stuff. So I think the next one is where we're going to get to see Barry and Oliver both come into play, and they'll actually help the rest of the team. I don't know if I never thought about this, but I don't know if they're going to be traveling through time with them, just in these next episodes, or what they're going to be doing. But I think that's why this is just part 1 of the pilot, and then, part 2 is basically like, it's all crossover stuff, so it's, all the pilot. But I think this was actually a surprisingly good first episode. I really enjoyed it, to be completely honest. And the thing that really got me is that it hit a couple of emotional moments that I wasn't expecting for this first episode, and I like those moments. Right from the start, they have it where Vandal Savage, he kills this little kid and stuff, and that, to be totally honest, I didn't think that meant anything for the show. I thought it was honestly like most things. It's like, this is the villain, and he kills a kid. He's a really bad villain. But it actually ended up being important because that woman that he killed and that boy, those 2 people were the family of Rip Hunter, and that's why he wants, that's why he's so determined to stop Vandal Savage, because they killed his family. And I thought that was a really great moment in the episode. I definitely thought it was acted well, because the guy seemed like he was genuinely about to cry, and I was like, that's really good acting. He seems very upset. And that surprised me. It was a really good moment. Of course, that was basically right after probably my favorite moment, which I'll kind of save. But the other moment is that we see Hawkman and Hawkgirl's son from the past. And I thought that was pretty cool, too. Like, once he mentioned, like, their names, and I was like, oh, it's the same name as his last name. I'm like, how did they not instantly think that's their son? But I knew as soon as he said, they had this last name, same last name as him, I was like, crap, they had a son together, and it was him. So I thought it was really cool how they did that. And of course, him passing away was definitely an emotional moment, and it bonded Hawkman and Hawkgirl together. But it was also just a sad moment in general, because they had this connection to someone that, even though they didn't know him, and even Hawkman didn't remember, and he's the one who typically has all the years of experience, and they just bonded with him, because it's like, well, past life or not, we're reincarnations. Even if we don't remember you, you are still our son, in the weird sense. And I like that. I like the fact that they had that emotional connection, even though it just seems so strange. They're both in, well, for Hawkgirl, she's the one who's really in like the weird situation, but even she felt connected to this guy, and she had just met him. And I personally, I think that went well. I could easily see some people thinking that was kind of stupid, that she instantly, cared about this guy. But considering she knows she's the reincarnation, I probably feel the same way too. Like, even though I don't remember him whatsoever, he's still the son of my, former self, and I could still easily understand having an instant connection to that person. So I like the way that they did that, and, the emotional aspect that was brought out of that and out of his passing. And then the third thing, which personally I think was the biggest effect, even though someone died, I felt like everyone being lied to was probably the biggest moment. Like, both the other stories are about people dying, so I probably shouldn't be saying that this is like the one I feel was the worst. But it's definitely, it's a hard way to put it, because of course the other 2 stories are people dying, so I can't say it's like it's the worst thing that happened, because families being destroyed and stuff. But it was definitely devastating to all these characters, because the whole show, based on the trailer and everything, was like, these are the people who in the future grow up, end up being like just legendary heroes and stuff like that, that's save time and all this crazy stuff. And they destroy that in this first episode, and I loved it. When that happened, I was like, holy crap. It was like, it's not because you guys are super important or anything like that. It's because you're so irrelevant that I could just pluck you out of time. And some of these people are heroes, which is, that's what makes it the craziest thing. Like, we have Adam, we have Firestorm, and we have the White Canary, and none of them, no marks on history. Hawkman and Hawkgirl, and these people, are reincarnations of, over centuries. Nothing. Like, they leave zero mark on history whatsoever. They just don't matter. And I kind of love that aspect. I was like, man, that really sucks, because it's kind of a real world type of thing where, people just want to care. And it certainly affects Ray more than anyone else, because they show everyone's reasons for joining, and that was his, because he's hit by the fact that when he died, no one gave a crap. He made all this crazy technology and nobody cared. His building blew up, he had a little sign, and they changed, the name of the city, and that's pretty much it. And that was it. And he, his point is like, I want to help save the world. I want to make a difference, and I want to be remembered for doing something good. Even though I feel like he'd have to have done a ton of amazing things, considering all the technology he has, but it just doesn't matter to people, apparently. But, I just thought it was crazy, like, man, that really sucks. And I understood, like, how they were all kind of hurt by that, where it's like, we're, literally so irrelevant that he could just yank us out of time, and it didn't make a single difference whatsoever. And it's like, I can only imagine, what history says. You got, like, Barry and Oliver doing all this stuff, and they're just like, whatever, we're involved with those people, but clearly we mean less than nothing to all of history and time itself. So it's just like, that is insanely devastating to know. It's like, you are just that irrelevant. Nothing. You could literally die. You could fail this mission, and it wouldn't really matter. It's okay, no big deal. So I love the emotional beats that they hit, because I wasn't expecting that type of stuff to happen in this very first episode. I certainly enjoyed the character dynamics. We got White Canary kind of just palling up with just two known criminals. Like, they were just kind of like, they weren't used on the mission, and it's like, you guys want to go to a bar or whatever, just get drinks, and they just took off, and then they get into a crazy bar fight, which was really funny, and I just really liked that part of the episode. She breaks the one guy's arm, and then it's just like a typical bar fight, just a bunch of people who have no business being involved. It's just like, oh, we gotta punch her now, and then she's just whooping everybody up. Then they join in the fight. They're like dragging people across the bars, throwing people into the jukebox, and all this other stuff. And I just loved that fight, and it was just really fun to watch that. So I enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to seeing them go to a lot of different time periods. I know there's one, I believe they end up going back to the 70s again, because I remember there was a scene where Firestorm, and I can't think of the guy's actual name, but not Dr. Stein, his counterpart, I remember seeing a scene in the trailer where he was dressed up like in 70s outfits. So I don't know if they changed that around before this episode came out and he was meant to go and they just switched that, or if they actually end up going to the 70s as well, because they also had White Canary was also in that scene. Like, she was in there as well, and she was dressed up like she was actually from the 70s. So they might actually end up going back to that time period for, whatever reason. But I'm looking forward to seeing them jump through time, and I'm pretty sure they do end up going to the future as well. I'm pretty sure that it's not just all set in the past. Some stuff will be in the future. Like, we just can't find them during this chunk of time, so, let's go to the future. But I'm looking forward to that. Rip's story, I think, is very interesting, because, of course, with the way things started off, they made it seem like, oh, he got permission, he takes off, he finds these people, and, he goes through the mission, and then we realize the reason that he's being targeted by this guy Kronos is not because of Vandal Savage, which was the first thing I thought. I was like, okay, Vandal Savage knew that this guy was jumping through time trying to find him, so it's like, hey, you jump through time, try to find this guy before he gets me at some random point in history, and take him down. And then it turns out that the Time Masters send this guy after him, and he's not trying to just kill anybody, although he did totally kill those two random people for no good reason, because, I mean, he even said, it was like, I'm trying to see if you're integral to the timeline. And the fact that he literally vaporized these two guys, I was like, oh, villain. And it was like, no, he's with the Time Masters, who don't really get involved with, manipulating time. They just watch over humanity, which Rip had an amazing point in the beginning. Like, what's the point of watching over, watching over humanity if they're all dead and they're just, slaves to Vandal Savage. So, he had a really great point, but it was really crazy because the guy killed those two people, and then it's like, oh, he's actually working for the good guys, sort of. Like, that kind of shows how little they really care. Like, they're very ambiguous as far as being good or bad. It's like, we just need to get things done, and them... Although it should have been easy, like, no one's going to believe they saw a freaking ship turn invisible and fly into the air. Like, no one's going to believe that anyway. It's like, so Back to the Future stuff is like, sure you saw that. So, he didn't have to, kill those guys, but he did. And then it's like, oh, he's actually working with the Time Masters because they're actually trying to keep the timeline the same, which, they assume that it's good, but obviously, if 21, I think it was 2166, if everyone's just enslaved, London's just completely destroyed, then it's not really good. I think, Rip definitely has a really good point. So, it'll be interesting to see this character, who I love the fact that they called him Boba Fett at one point. I thought that was actually awesome. But, he has a really cool design. I'm looking forward to seeing his character kind of chase them throughout time and just seeing what effect he has on these characters. Because when he vaporized the other guys, it made me wonder how dangerous he really is to, like, some of the superheroes. Because, of course, I think, like, maybe, I guess, like, 5 of the members, pretty much everyone, honestly, is, I think, vulnerable enough to be taken down at this point. I mean, Ray might be okay because he has his Atom suit, but everyone else is pretty much exposed. Like, even if it's, like, full-on Firestorm, I don't know. He might be able to because he has, like, actual superpowers. It might not just vaporize him, but I don't know. Everyone else seems fairly vulnerable to a laser weapon that can just vaporize you in one shot. So, kind of hard to gauge 100% because everyone, no one actually got hit by anything. So it's a little hard to gauge exactly how difficult he's going to be to defeat. But he kind of had everybody countering at one point. Then none of them until they, all had their suits and everyone teamed up and everything. But I don't know. He seemed like a cool, tough villain. Looking forward to seeing him throughout this series. I think, like I said, I certainly love the design. He is a bounty hunter. He's a time bounty hunter. So I think Boba Fett certainly fits. I think he'll be doing a lot more than Boba Fett, though. Obviously, if you've seen Star Wars, you know what I mean by that. But I like his character. I like where the series is kind of kicked off. Really looking forward to what they do with this one and seeing just how they manipulate the crossovers, because they could do a lot with the crossovers. They probably won't do that until maybe season 2 of this series and the next seasons of Flash and Arrow. But they could do like future crossovers and stuff like that. They probably wouldn't do past crossovers, especially with Arrow, because he would have to stay on the island. But they could do future crossovers and stuff like that, and I think that would be really cool if they found a way to work with that idea. And it's like, we can stop in at this time, like 20 years in the future or something, and get some help, and it won't screw up the timeline or anything like that. But it's like, this is where Vandal Savage is. Might as well bring in some extra assistance that won't disrupt the timeline. And I think that'll be really cool. And they give like maybe little clues as to what's going to happen in the current season. They just say like random offhand comments like, oh, this happened or whatever, and it's like, oh, so that's going to happen in this season. They could easily do that, and I'm sure they've already had that idea, so we might even see that this season. I kind of doubt it, but I think they got really great potential for that, so I hope we get that sooner rather than later. But I think this was a pretty good start for a new series. I definitely enjoyed the action. It's great to see an ensemble cast of heroes, because we get to see a lot of different forms of action. We have our trained assassin, who will be doing all the cool martial arts moves. We have, and we kind of saw it in the bar fight, we have our 2 thieves who, they can fight. They actually have hand-to-hand combat. I mean, it was just actual normal punching and stuff like that, but they could hold their own, so we'll get to see stuff like that. Of course, we have our superheroes. We have Atom and Firestorm. They'll both be flying and shooting lasers and stuff. Hawkman and Hawkgirl, both flying and physical combat. I'm not sure what Rip's going to be doing, but he's got a really cool laser 6-shooter, which I thought was awesome because I kind of like 6-shooters. But I'm kind of looking forward to seeing all the different styles of action that they can do. Of course, with all these different characters, they can have a ton of big battles as well, which is one of the things I remember from the preview as well. So I hope we get that in this next episode. And that was the scene that actually had Barry, and I believe Oliver was in that. I know Barry for sure was in that scene, but I think they were both there. So there's some like facility thing you can look up the trailer if you want to, but I think we might be getting that in the next episode. But I certainly enjoyed this premiere. I think it was a really good start. Like I said, it surprised me with some of the emotional beats that they hit, and I thought they were hit fairly well. Even though some kind of surprised me, like the whole sun thing from the past. I thought that was definitely really cool. So looking forward to what they're going to be doing with this show. Still no answer as to what Malcolm did, but we do get the answer that as long as the only people that can officially kill him can be Hawkman or Hawkgirl, and that's how he's able to return. So it's not like he'll return no matter what. Like as long as if Hawkman and Hawkgirl, one of them has to kill him and it's done. Otherwise, it only takes one cell for him to be brought back. So we still don't have the answer as to why Malcolm brought him back to life or how he did it, because once again it can't be the Lazarus Pit because they've destroyed it in Arrow. So that question's still kind of floating in the air. We didn't even get Malcolm Merle. I was like, oh sweet, we're gonna get the answer, and it was like, nope, this is just all about setting up the characters. And I was like, crap, that kind of sucks because I really want to know what happened, and it kind of makes me wonder if how they're gonna do it, because if he's if they figure out that answer and how Malcolm Merlin is like, how'd he bring him back to life? It's like, oh, that's how he did it. All they would have to do is go back in time and stop that, and it would save everything. So somehow either they aren't going to get that answer for a very long time, or they somehow won't be able to stop it, or so like even in a time machine, somehow they won't be able to stop it. They gave also, that reminds me, they gave one of the best examples I've ever heard in a series about why they cut something so close to the time limit of like, because in everything it's always like, oh, we time traveled, we only got a day, and it's like, why didn't you just transport like a week ago or a year ago and you had a year? And they had the perfect example of why you would do that, and it was because that way, if he's so close to dying, then whatever they do would have the most minimal consequence on the timeline. And I thought that was the coolest idea that no one has ever given. Like they've probably given it before, but people rarely ever give an answer as to why you show up at the last minute instead of showing up like anytime you want to because you have a time machine. And I love the fact that they did that, because I've seen a lot of time travel stuff. Obviously, giant fan of Back to the Future, so it's like, when he said that, I was like, that is a beautiful example that no one ever seems to give. So I really appreciated hearing that, even though it's all time travel stuff, so it's not like it's all theoretical. But I was like, that just makes perfect sense. Like, for once, somebody said something that makes sense. It doesn't alter the timeline drastically, and it doesn't just like throw things all in in a daze, and you still get to do exactly what you need to do, because he was dying, so there's nothing that could possibly happen afterwards. And I just thought it was good. I was like, that is a great example. I loved hearing that example, and it just really surprised me. It was like, why cut it so close? And they gave a full scientific answer. And I was like, that actually works. Never does in anything else, but they did it here. So definitely cool for that. In general, a great premiere. Of course, though, I want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, with it being the first episode of this brand new DC series, I want to know if it hooked you guys. If you guys are gonna stay on, or if it bored you, or just it wasn't good enough. Are you gonna stay on because maybe story wise, or is it just gonna be to see some cool action scenes? For me, it'll be both. I can't wait to see some of the great action, but based on how they did the story, did the emotional moments, like even just seeing all the characters and why they joined, I think was a great part of this episode, which was really funny, by the way, because everyone joins, and it's like, of all the people, I could not believe that Stein was the one that had to drug somebody and bring him on the ship, and it's like, I can't believe he just did that. Like, all the people, you got criminals and just everybody. And it's like, well, I gotta drug you because you don't want to go. And I was like, I can't believe that happened, but it was really funny. Like, that was really cool. Um, but I really loved it. I like the action as well as just the story in general. Certainly love the comedy because there's just so many different personalities, and so far, I feel like there's some fairly good chemistry, and pretty much all these characters have run into each other anyway. So we've kind of seen everyone talk to everybody else before this episode, except for like a couple of the characters. Um, but I think it's done really well, so I'm really looking forward to it. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.